little bit of math here for you. If you want to do, you pick the length of whip that you want, the overall length. Okay, so we'll go with 10 feet, so it's 120 inches. You divide the overall length by 2.181818. Okay, that's going to be the length of the 2 core strands that you need to load with shot. And they're going to be folded in half with the ends staggered according to one of these other cells here. Okay, so that 2.1818 gets you the 4.58333. Okay, so your core strands are going to be 4.58 feet long, and you're going to end up using a total of 263.5 feet of paracord. Okay, so just to give you an idea, the total length of the whip and the amount of cord you're going to use, as you can see, it gets pretty high pretty fast. Typically, an entire spool of paracord is 500 feet. So you can just barely squeak out a 19-foot whip out of one spool of paracord. Okay, so I built this spreadsheet. All you have to do is pick the length of whip you want. So you want a 6-foot whip. Okay, and it tells you, it gives you kind of an average of shot load length. So the minimum and maximum there is 25% to 33% of the overall length, which for 6 feet is 18 to 24 inches. Okay, and then you want your strands to be 33 inches, and you're going to stagger the ends of them 6 inches, so your total core length is going to be 28 inches. Okay, then your first belly, there's the length of each of your strands. You're going to do your drops at 5 inches and wrap the last 12, and then the overlay, the outer part, there's each of your strands there, drops at 4 inches, and you're going to wrap the last 18. Okay, so for this whip, we're doing a 10-foot whip. Okay, so there's the lengths of cords. Okay, and since I don't want to bore you with watching me measure and cut paracord, I've already got a bunch of it cut out. Okay, here's my core strands. We need to pull the guts out still and then shot load it. And I'm using just regular steel BBs. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you got core strands, and paracord is hollow. It's got a nylon, or sometimes it's made out of other stuff too, shell with 7 strands on the inside. Okay, and sometimes with these short strands you can just pull everything straight out and they will come out nice and easy. Other times you'll have to like wrap these around a doorknob and then pull the outside sheath off little by little, and it'll all come off. And you want to save these because we're going to use them on the whip in a different step. Okay, you don't want to throw these away. Well, the shorter ones you can throw away, but you can still use these. Okay, then once you have the guts pulled out, okay, see it's hollow, and we are going to fill it with BBs, so we need to seal the end. Okay, okay, doesn't have to be super pretty, but melted so that it's not going to unravel or let any of the BBs fall out. Okay, that's called a lacing needle or a fid. This one is a permalock. It's got an opening in the back that's threaded, so if you cut your paracord and melt the end so that it's solid, you can actually thread it into the base of this and it'll hold on to it. So you can use it to make a hole and pull the paracord through. But to make things a little easier on myself, I'm using the wide end of it here, and I'm going to just barely melt the edges. Okay, and see it's kind of made kind of made a funnel shape to the end, and that makes it easier to fit the BBs in. Okay. Squeeze them down in there. And you're going to take those all the way to the end. Okay? Time for super speed. Alright, so we got our 2 strands. They've been shot loaded and the ends have been fused, so the pellets aren't going to come out. Okay? Now remember that spreadsheet said we wanted to have about 9 inches between our drops. So we're actually going to do let's do 7 inches. Okay. Like that. And this one will be 14 inches. Okay. So now we've got each one of the strands. They're separated a little bit so that they are about 7 inches from one end to the next, and then this loop at the end is where we're going to put a cord through to tie everything together, and then we're going to start binding the cord. Pick these guys up and kind of pinch those loops. Put a piece of paracord through there. And then just put an overhand knot in it so it doesn't fall out. Okay, and then remember all the strings inside your paracord that we pulled out earlier? We're going to use those to bind the shot loaded parts together. Okay, so I've got some of that string on a spool running through. This is for serving your bowstrings. Works out really well for trying to get these tied together. Just put a couple of overhand knots in it to hold everything together. And then we're going to go hang it on our board so that we can get all of them bound together. So I've got my board. I've just got a piece of paracord with a little slip knot in the end of it that I use to hold the part that I'm working on so that it's hanging straight and I can get to everything with both hands. We got our string tied on around the top, and we're just going to work our way around it, keeping those 4 strands in almost a square, all laying next to each other. Okay. And we're going to go up and down this thing probably 3 or 4 times, and whenever we get to a spot where we're close to the end of one of those core pieces, we're going to put our wraps closer together, both above and below, so that that spot doesn't try to poke out or come undone. Okay, we got our core. It's all been wrapped up. Okay. Everything's tight. We've got our 8 strands for the first belly, organized from longest to shortest. Hold it right there on the front. And we're going to take this top one here, bring it around the back, and we're going to go under 4 and over 4. And then this one will now be the bottom strand of these 8. Okay, and then we do the same thing from the opposite side. Bring that top one around the back, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes under those 4, over top of those 4, and over top of the one that we just did. Okay. And we keep repeating. Top strand, around the back, 1, 2, 3, 4. And across the front. Okay, just like that. Once you've got down a little ways, about 2 inches or so, you can start pulling on these strings to tighten things up. If you try and do it too soon, you might pull loose one of the cords if it hasn't been plated into place yet. Okay. And now that everything's on there, we can pull that bobby pin out. And keep on going. Okay, now that you've braided down some, you've got short ends, okay, that are, I already pulled this one down, okay. You don't have enough string left to do another wrap with it, so you have 2 options. You can either let it hang out and continue your plait and then cut it off and melt the little bit on the outside, or you can use some of your paracord guts, your thread. You wrap that tail around the core like that, wrap it up with this thread and tie it off, and then continue doing your plait. We've got everything plaited out, and we're to the end where we've got 4 strands left, and we need to transition from a plait to twist. Okay, so if you ever need to take a break while you're working on your whip, just clamp it. Okay, take your clamp off and go ahead and kind of tug on each of the strands. Make sure everything is still good and tight. Okay, now you're going to take 2 of the strands and you're going to start twisting counterclockwise. Okay, pass it to this hand, keep it pinched tight. Do the same thing with these ones, start twisting counterclockwise. And what you're going to do is you twist the 2 strands counterclockwise and then the 4 strands against themselves clockwise. Okay? They run opposite. So keep doing that. And remember, our drops are supposed to be about every 9 inches. So once I have 9 inches of this twisted, I'll pull one of the strands out and continue with the twist. That way it continues to taper and get smaller in diameter as we go. Okay, I've got my 9 inches of twist. I'm going to pick the shortest strand and leave it to the side and twist the other 3. Once you get a couple wraps down, you can go back and kind of pull that one down a little bit, help seat it into the twist, and then you can't tell where it's going to come out of. And we'll cut that off once we're done. Okay, we've got it all twisted down, and that's the end of both of those strands. So what we're going to do is just do a simple overhand knot, like that. Okay, and that's the end of it. And we will cut these off and melt them just a little bit with the lighter. Okay, so we've got the end of our whip, razor blade, and lighter. Okay, here's our first set of drops. So what you do, take your razor blade, trim that guy down. So it's just a little bitty nub. And then you're just singeing it to seal that in, okay? It's not gonna unravel. And since this is the first belly of the whip, we don't have to worry much about it being pretty, or if you melt the strands around it a little bit, because we're going to do the overlay on top of this, and that's the one that we want to make pretty and hide where all these drops are. There's a point when you're melting paracord where it will melt and run together, but it doesn't discolor. Okay, if your paracord's blue, it'll stay blue. See that? If you burn it down too much, or you leave the tail too long and it has to burn down too far, then it starts to turn black and crusty. Okay? And you don't want that. I'll finish up the rest of these real quick and then show you what we do at the very end. Okay, we're down to the end. We've got all the other drops cut and the ends melted on. So to keep this from coming undone when we go to cut it, leave this one for last. Cut this one, melt it down so it'll fuse into the twist at the end, and then we can take this one off. See how it's all melted into place? That's not going to go anywhere. Okay? And then we can trim this guy down. And now he's totally melted into place. It's not going to unravel or do anything. Okay, now that we've got all the drops have been cut and melted, we need to roll the belly, okay? So I've got just an old soup can I wrapped in electrical tape to give it some grip. And what you're doing here is you're just compressing all the layers against each other so they kind of stay nice and tight. Okay, because you can see how some of them there's little wrinkles and creases, but once you roll it, all those flatten out. Okay, it gives you a nice smooth surface for you to do the next layer over top of. So I usually start with a can like this, do it on my lap, and then you can do it again on like a dinner table or countertop. And then if you want to, from there you can get a nice smooth like 2x4 and roll it on clean concrete like your garage floor, and that'll get it really smoothed out and ready for the overlay. Okay, and then we get down here, the transition from the braid, the plait, to the twist. Same thing, just keep on rolling it. Every now and then stop, give it a little stretch. That helps to get everything pulled back tight against the other strands. And then just keep on going. You get down here clear to the end, and you want to make sure that you have the whole strand rolling, not just where you're pushing down, because what will end up happening is you'll get stuck on this part and you'll just slide it back and forth and create flat spots, and that's not what you want to do. You want everything to be gently rounded. Okay, do a little stretch, and see, you can tell that whole twist right here was the first drop. Okay, and you can hardly tell the difference between where there's 4 strands and 3 strands, or down here where there's 2 strands. It just slowly tapers down to nothing, and that's what you want. So I've got the one lacing needle. You can see how it's got a kind of a dull point on it, and it's a little bit wide right behind here. I have another one that I filed it down and put a point on it so that you can use that to pierce through the paracord to attach them. And then this is a canvas awl, or you're using leather working too. And because of the pattern that we're going to do for the overlay on this whip, rather than having one strand that's all one color, we need to have one strand that's 2 different colors. So you take your strand measurement for the one length, divide it in half, and cut you one of each color at that measurement. So what I've got is white and blue. And so I have 2, one white, one blue, all the same length. Okay? And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to fuse these 2 together so that you have one piece that's the length you need. So what we're going to do to start with is we're going to go ahead and fuse one end shut. Get that tip kind of melted on there, and then you twist the needle on. And now doesn't look like I'm off. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go in through the opening. Okay? Go inside the paracord. Don't need to go very far, probably no more than a ½ inch or so, and work your point through it. Okay? Now we've got an opening in the paracord, and we can use the needle to pull the blue one through it. We've got that end done, so now we've got to attach the white paracord to the needle. And this one, we can't go in from the outside, we have to go from the outside in. Okay? And see, look, if you're not careful, you can actually jab your needle through both sides of the paracord. So back it up just a little bit. go. Okay, and pull that through. Take it off the needle. And now these two pieces are joined and they're not coming apart. Now you very carefully use your lighter and singe the edges to fuse the paracord back together so that it doesn't fray apart. And now we have one piece that is the length we need it in two different colors. Okay, we've got our first belly. Everything's been done to it. All the ends are trimmed and melted, and it's been rolled to smooth it out. We got it hanging back up here on our board to work on it. And then we have our overlay strands. And because of the kind of pattern we're going to do, we wanted it to be half blue and half white. But if we were to start plating it just like this, the entire whip would have one part white, one part blue, one part white, and on the back would be one part blue. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the pattern that we're going for. So what I'm going to do is take, we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 strands. So we're going to take, let's see here, these are the short ones. So we're going to take 2, 4, 5, and we're going to reverse them. Okay, so now we are half blue, half white on both sides. We got our blue and white on there already. And when you're starting out with 9 strands like this for an overlay, bobby pins really aren't the easiest thing to use. They're not quite long enough and things just don't want to stay put. So we're going to leave this one on there, kind of squish everything together, and get started up here at the top, because these top ones are our shortest strands. Okay, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, under 4, over 5. You don't want to pull anything tight while you're still up here, because these strands haven't even been plated yet. So if you try to pull it tight, you're actually going to pull them sideways and then you'll have uneven ends. Okay? So wait until you get through these ones before you try and pull it tight. And when you do that, you want to pull down. To pull tight, you don't pull out, because pulling out, it'll tighten it, but it actually makes your pattern, this part, get wider. And so then you end up with one part that's really wide, and then the other side, it's really small. Kind of like the difference in scales on a snake. They'll have the long scales on their belly and short scales on their back. So make sure you're pulling down when you pull those tight. reached the point where we're ready for the first drop, because you can see is if we pull this one around and put it here right like it should, there's not going to be enough to do another sequence. So when we get to this point, triple check that you've pulled all of your strands tight. Okay? If you do that as you go, it helps keep you from wandering or twisting the pattern as you go. Okay, so what we're going to do, got our 4, you bring that strand around, okay, and this is where your clamp comes in handy. We're going to go ahead and clamp this so that everything above that stays nice and tight, and then we can use our paracord guts, the thread, to tie this guy into place. And I'm going to need 3 hands to do that, so hang on just a minute. We've got that the end of that strand wrapped around and tied in place with the thread. So now we can come back right in here. We'll pull everything tight one more time, because anytime you clamp it and unclamp it like that, you want to make sure you get everything pulled back tight. Okay. And you can kind of twist that around on the belly to get it pulled tight. So now we're ready for the end of the white one. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. Wrap it around, put our clamp on, and get it tied in place. Okay, we've got our white strand on there tied in place. Pop our clamp off, give everything another quick tug to tighten. And we are ready to continue with our pattern. But now that we've dropped that first strand, instead of our pattern being under 5/4, it's now going to be, or over 5/4, it's now going to be 4/4. Okay, until we get to the next strand to drop. And then we're just going to do the same thing. Each time we got to drop them, make sure you drop both. If they're a little uneven, that's okay. You know, you can spread them out a little bit, but as long as you're not going, you know, you don't want to have a drop here and a drop here. Okay, if your string is that far out of line, then go ahead and, you know, go back up to where this one was dropped and drop this one as well. Okay, and so you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5, 5, 5. Now look, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's because we dropped that blue strand. Okay, and then when we repeat again, we're going to have 4 of the white. So we're down to where we got the tag ends of the white and blue strands, which would leave us with 2 long white ones and 2 long blue ones. So we're at the point where we need to start twisting these together. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all the blue to one side and all the white to the other side. And you start to twist. Remember, counterclockwise with the strands, clockwise with the wrap. Okay. You have to make these turn opposite directions in order for them to sit flat against each other when it's all finished. And having this little tag end sticking out here is fine, because we can trim that and melt it in place and it's not going to go anywhere. We've got the fall twisted all the way up, clear to the end. So it's time to trim off all our tag ends. Okay, so there's that guy right there. It helps if you kind of wrap it around your finger so that the tag end is sticking out just a tiny bit, and then put it vertical, and then you can put it next to the edge of your flame. Okay, push it down and twist it back tight again, and that will set it in place. Now when you've got ones that are a little bit longer, because remember on the fall we're making sure we're going every 9 inches and dropping a strand. So when you've got a longer piece like this, you can cut this off and fuse it in place, and then use this to create the cracker, the popper at the very end of the whip. So don't throw those away. And if you watch it, you can see, especially with the white, it's easy because the melted portion is clear. And then you twist it back tight again and hold it, and you'll watch it kind of lose its shine and then start to turn a little bit white, and that's when you know it's cooled. Leave your one piece that's coming straight out for last, and the piece that you knotted against itself, do first. Okay? So what we actually want to do here is pull it back a little bit so it's not up tight against itself. Now sometimes what I do is when I attach a popper to the fall, I'll leave this strand a little long, maybe sometimes even tie a loop at the end. Okay, so what we're going to do here, see, we've already fused the blue back to itself and to the white right here. Take all the twist back out of it. Okay, and just leave you a loop about like that. Okay, and then we're gonna cut this tag end. There we go. And now we've got a little loop to attach the cracker to. So I'll show you how to make those. Okay, so we've got the loop at the end of our fall. We've got one of those pieces that we cut off. One end has been fused, the other has not. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but what we're going to do is come through the loop. So, here. Make you a loop out of your string, put it through the loop on the fall. And then put your long end through that loop. Okay. And then bring your tag in and tuck it in there and make a little hitch. Okay. That's pulled down tight, it's not going anywhere. And as you crack a whip, the cracker starts to wear down. Parts of it will blow off and it'll kind of fray its way up. So make your little overhand knot. Give you a good 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Okay? And you can help fray it out a little bit more, but once you start popping it, it's going to come apart on its own. So eventually you'll wear down to where this knot is. So then you might even need to cut this knot off, tie you another one, tie you another one, and as you're going down, you'll finally get to this end, and then you can untie this and tie the new one on. Okay? That way you can use the same whip and just replace your poppers as you need to. A lot of whip designs, your final strand is the popper. And so when it finally wears down to, well, probably about to here, it's not going to crack anymore. And if it does, it's not going to be very loud. And then finally you're going to crack it one time and it's going to blow this apart and your whole whip is going to come unraveled. Okay, so you want to give yourself a way to make your whip last a lifetime. Just replace the popper at the end. Okay, we've got our completed whip, and this is the tiger tail pattern, they call it, but if you roll it to the side it becomes the chevron pattern. Tiger tail, chevron. Okay, so the very last step for this whip is going to be to roll it, get everything smoothed out and even, and then we don't need to wax it because this is going to be more of a show whip. It's not an everyday use whip. And then we've got to turn the handle and get it put together. Okay, so see how everything's nice and smooth. The layers are all even. Okay, that's been rolled. And you come down here, see how you can see shadows between each of the strands. If you look at the edge profile, it kind of goes in and out. Okay, that portion has not been rolled. Okay, rolled, smooth, straight profile, no shadows. Not rolled, shadows, jagged profile.